Hey there, I'm Steve, and welcome to Jamson Entertainment. And welcome to the conversation. Just before we get started, there are many ways you can help. You can like and subscribe so you never miss a conversation. But most importantly, please share this video. Get the word out there as a community we can talk about all the things that we love. Today on Throwback Thursday, we're looking at The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson, Heath Ledger, Jolie Richardson, Jason Isaacs, Chris Cooper, Jackie Cario, sorry for mispronouncing your name, and all names, Renee Auberjonois, Lisa Brenner, Tom Wilkinson, Donald Logue, Leon Rippey, Adam Baldwin, J. Arlen Jones, Joey D. Vieira, Gregory Smith, Mika Borum, Sky McCall Bartusiak, Trevor Morgan, Brian Chaffin, and Logan Lerman. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of all these reviews lately, these are historical fiction. I've seen this movie half a dozen times, and because I'm watching it to review it, and I'm keeping in mind that it's historical fiction, grant you, I am American. I do know a little bit about my history. I mean, part of my ancestry goes back to the Revolutionary War. That ancestry is a Hessian soldier who was conscripted over in Germany and came here to fight as a mercenary against the colonials. He and the rest of the men in his group got captured and they were given two options. Think of which option he took. I'm more familiar with the broader history of the Revolutionary War and some of the history in Pennsylvania because I visited Valley Forge numerous times as a scout. We reenacted, I don't know if that's quite the word for it, but we would do what's called the winter encampment. Washington took his troops through Valley Forge in winter, and that's why we would camp there in winter. I mean, our conditions were far better than the soldiers in the Revolutionary War then, but it was still, well, it toughened me up, let's put it that way. Putting up a tent in a blizzard does that to you. What I'm getting at is the main character, Benjamin Martin, doesn't exist. He's an amalgam of real people that lived in this time period, a real militia that served in the colonial army. The only character I'm aware of that is real, other than the mention of George Washington, is General Cornwallis of the British Empire. But he's not the main antagonist. That honor is reserved for Colonel Tavington. I'm not sure if he's a real person, and if he is a real person, I have no idea if this is an accurate depiction of him. I just remembered the point I was trying to make. I kind of made it, but here's to further it. This one leans heavy on the fiction, because I checked. This came out June 28th, 2000. That is only a few short days before the 4th of July. I'm guessing the only reason why it didn't come out on the 4th of July because it probably landed on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And so this movie is really pro-America, and we hate the British. And they really do so with Colonel Tavington. They make him a bloodthirsty psychopath. General Cornwallis is just a, how would the British say it? A posh snob? Something like that? I mean, it's not entirely inaccurate because I do know militia were used in the Revolutionary War. Guerrilla war tactics were also used. Part of the backstory for the main character, Benjamin Martin, is that he served during the French and Indian War as a British soldier. And he was militia then, and he used guerrilla tactics then as well. When the Americans were declaring their independence and using guerrilla tactics, they were also taking out officers, and the British saw that as horrific. And there's even a scene in here between Benjamin and Cornwallis, and Cornwallis points out to him, like, you shouldn't kill the officers. The field is supposed to be led by better men, and we can't just have regular soldiers running amok creating chaos. Because this is old-timey fighting where you have the Brits on one side standing in a long line, soldier to soldier, and then the Americans on the other side doing the same thing, and they just shoot at each other in the open battlefields. But there were some parts of the American army where they used ambush tactics a lot. To further drive home the part that this is fiction, you know what I told you about Braveheart last week? You want the same plot? Okay, it's not the exact same plot, but the blueprints from Braveheart, which came out 5 years earlier, are definitely used for this movie. Major differences are, you don't see a young Benjamin Martin as a boy, and then see him grow into a Mel Gibson. No. And he's not a single man, he is a family man, and his wife is already dead. They don't explain why or how. And he has another love interest, which I didn't mention in the last one because I thought it was kind of stupid in that one, and it's really forced in this one, and kind of creepy. It's like a mutual creepy kind of. His wife has a sister, and they hinted it from the very start when they see each other. He brings his family into Charlestown because I guess the legislature or the council of the area is coming together to decide whether they should send a vote, yay or nay, to Philadelphia for independence, or should they fight, something like that. He lives out in the country. He's a farmer. So he goes to Charlestown and stays at his sister's-in-law's with his family. And they just slowly build the relationship, but it's not done well at all. It's really forced. I don't like it. The movie would have been fine without it. Anyway, despite the fantastic acting in Braveheart, Mel Gibson just takes it to a whole nother level in this one. Very subtlety. He does a ton of acting without speaking, and it is masterfully done. You really believe this character could have existed, and the things that happened to him could have happened. Again, like Braveheart, he's a man that doesn't want to get involved. He has a nice little speech when he's in Charleston. And what brings him into the war is that his son gets killed by the bloodthirsty psychopath Colonel Tavington. I mean, they really make this guy despicable. The only time he seems humble is when he's talking to his general, and his general is scolding him. But other than that, he's just a bloodthirsty psychopath. But there is a real cast of characters. All the men that Mel Gibson and his son Gabriel recruit for this militia, they're all pretty awesome. It's probably only because I just did Braveheart. I'm seeing a ton of comparisons between these two, but I can't help it. I'm not going to give the other comparison away. There's so many similarities. There's so many exact plot points that they follow, but they are two distinct movies. Like, there's a scene in Braveheart where William Wallace self-declares himself as a savage after being called one. But again, the acting that Mel Gibson is bringing to the Patriot, you see the savagery. It is insane. He's not the only one acting his butt off. Every single person in this movie has brought their A game. I really do love this movie. I know it's the beginning of June, but it's definitely a fun one to watch on the 4th of July or around the 4th of July. And I highly recommend that you get this on Blu-ray. Those are my thoughts on The Patriot. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and live your imagination.